and thanks for joining us today. I'm Vivica Williams, and today on the program, we're going to talk about agriculture, more specifically land reform in Ukraine. Now, this is a controversial and highly debated topic here in Ukraine. In fact, moratoriums on buying land and selling land, which were introduced over a decade ago, have never been lifted. So this means potentially huge amounts of foreign investment into Ukraine remain on hold. However, Prime Minister Volodymyr Grossman has been cautious in opening up the land market. But why? What is the long-term solution? And how big an effect do the limitations have on making Ukraine once again the breadbasket of Europe? Joining us to discuss this is Leonid Kozachenko. He is from the Ukrainian Agrarian Confederation. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here because I have a lot of questions about land reform in Ukraine. So there's currently no sales market. You cannot sell agricultural land, and you haven't been able to for 25 years now. So if land cannot be sold, what kind of market works here?
Okay, even when we had no opportunities to sell the land, Ukraine been proceeding. And agriculture of Ukraine today is very, very strong field of economy. We are ranking too high compared with that what we had 25 years ago. And for instance, when we talk about grain export, we are taking second position after United States, because last season we managed to sell more than 40 million tons of grain. US is selling roughly 75, 78. European Union, it's 27 countries, 28 even, it's behind of Ukraine. When we talk about different products like sunflower oil, Ukraine is #1 in the world. So even having no way to obtain good investments, because land is the best solution when we talk about investment, I will tell you why. Even without this, we are now very strong in the world. So it's very good. It's the only field of economy of Ukraine which provides significant strength for Ukraine. The rest, unfortunately, not so strong for the time being. So agriculture is leading sector of economy, which helps a lot for the country to recover.
Okay, and so if there was land reform, would this be improved? What's the potential for growth?
Okay, according to the result of certain research made by different companies, Ukraine needs approximately $75 billion investments. If we obtain such an investments, we can triple production of agricultural commodities. Is it too much? If you ask me, I would say that at the global level, average FDI, foreign direct investments, is about 140 billion. So half of this should go to Ukraine, but maybe not in 1 year time. Let's say in 10 years time, it would be realistic approach. So we have to do this. If we manage to obtain, I said, 75 billion, we can triple production of agricultural commodities. How we can obtain such an investments? What we could put as a pledge to get this financing? The best, of course, is the land, because it's very high quality, and everybody knows that approximately 27% of the global black soil located to Ukraine, global black soil available is located to Ukraine. So we try to do this, but there are some obstacles which we have to overcome to speed up this reform.
To what exactly is the land form that you would propose? Currently, the government is saying that the land reform they're proposing would allow only individuals to buy land and only up to 200 hectares.
Yeah.
Is this enough?
We have to learn the experience the Eastern European countries have, because at the first stage they put the obstacle for foreigners to buy the land. They prefer their local citizens to obtain to become the landowners. We need the same in Ukraine. That's why if you allow legal entities, not private persons, to come and to buy, it's very, very tough. It's not possible to check who is behind of these legal entities. It's much easier to clarify the situation when it's private person. That's why at the first stage, just private persons would be allowed to buy the land. And the size of the land plot would be limited by 200 hectares. That means that family, usually it's in average 4 people, they could obtain up to 800 hectares of land. It's quite enough for Ukraine to help people like that to become strong in agriculture, because they could produce a lot, having almost 1,000 hectares of land. It's for such a land, for such a quality of land, it's very good for the family to grow up.
But if we're looking at land reform in general, having private hectares like this, 200 hectares, the efficiency is lower, the operational costs are higher. So is this type of reform enough to be able to really open up the market and take advantage of Ukraine's potential?
No, but it's very significant reform, which helps a lot. In addition to this reform, of course, we have to take care about different kind of problems to be settled. One biggest is transparency and corruption elimination. Unfortunately, such a problem exists in Ukraine. Then we have to privatize a huge number of state-owned enterprises. Maybe nobody believe that what I say, but when we look at Ukraine, we have almost 1,000 enterprises under Ministry of Agriculture. Such a number of enterprises in Europe, let's say that total 28 countries, they have no 1,000 in total.
The state enterprise agriculture.
Under Ministry of Agriculture.
So also
we have to
here
privatize.
the government owns 25% of the agricultural lands as well.
Yeah.
And so you're saying this also needs to be privatized.
Yes, it's nothing. There is nothing more than nothing to be learned by private farms, because it's not competitive. The state enterprises go in bankrupt. If we sell the land they use, and of course the enterprises which still available and alive, it helps a lot for Ukraine, because we would obtain up to 50 billion Ukrainian hryvnias. It's quite a few. It's about $2 billion US dollars.
But if, according to this land reform that's, they're looking at passing, if they wouldn't be able to sell the state enterprise and the land to a private company that could maximize it. So what's being pushed is this for individuals to be able to buy. So how will that be efficient?
At the first stage, just for individuals, private person is allowed to buy 200 hectares of land. Maybe in 2 years' time, maybe in 3 years' time, legal entities, like companies, would be allowed to buy the land. But now we are talking about certain limits for legal entities, because if there is no limits, that means that maybe we will have finally 2 or 3 companies in Ukraine just performing in agriculture. We have to create a very strong competition. That's why at the national level, we are considering just not more than 1% of the existing land could be consolidated by legal entity, not like a person, but legal and a company could assemble and collect maximum 1% of land available, agricultural land, in Ukraine. That means that theoretically it would be 100 companies in Ukraine. Of course, if you have 100 companies, they would compete. Maybe it's very difficult to understand people who is listening to us, because when we look at Europe, it's family farms. In Ukraine, we have industrial farmers. It provides very big strength for the farms, because they control the production chain, they produce raw material, they produce milk, meat, processing milk and meat. They have many levels of margin, and they sell this product itself to the world market, so they are very much competitive compared with small farms. For Ukraine, it's a common situation. For Europe, small family farms. So it's a very big difference. Our strength is industrial farming.
So, if I understand correctly, you're thinking that perhaps with these families being able to buy larger plots,
yes,
this could help them be more competitive with the small market idea in Europe.
Exactly.
So, for example, maybe in some niche thing like organic farming or things that are in demand in Europe.
Yes. So you can small farms, family farms should be oriented to a certain type of products, which is, let's say, organic production, let's say nut production, honey production, something like this, but not grain production, not milk and meat production, because it's industrial, too much industrial. And for family farm, it's not possible. You should subsidize significantly family farm to let the farm compete with the big companies. They would be not able. But we have enough space in Ukraine for small farms, for mid-sized farms, and for large farms. But by the way, lots of companies representatives from all over the world, big companies, coming to Ukraine to learn how industrial farming in Ukraine is established, because it's very modern, and just in Ukraine you can see how it works, because number of softwares involved in the production control, it's not uncomparable with any similar company in the world. You will never come across with similar example, let's say in United States. There is no such a big companies using such a high technologies to control the production and to control the production chain and value chain. So Ukraine is unique in, let's say, demonstration industrial farming, and it provides this kind of strength which make Ukraine different from the rest of countries.
But you're saying that Ukraine needs to move away from industrial farming towards more small-scale family farming?
I don't think so. That means that if you ask me what is better to use when you go from Kiev to Paris or to London, whether you use airplane or you can use a horse. If you use a horse, it takes a month. Maybe you enjoy it. You will travel the whole month. If you use the airplane, it takes 2 hours. So that's the big difference. And believe me, when I had many opportunities to meet with number of farmers in Europe, most of them, they're not educated, they are not graduated university, and they have very big troubles if their children saying that we want to go to university. They are afraid that they would never return back. If you ask why you are not going to university, because my grandfather was milking cow, and my father did the same. Why? I know how to do this, because for the last, let's say, century, my family been milking cows. So I don't need education from the university. In Ukraine, we have different approach. We are not milking cow. We are having 1,000, 5,000 cows, 10,000 cows. We have a fleet of grain harvesters, and we know how to operate this. It's absolutely different from that what small farmer is doing. That's why, you know, it's maybe somebody is not able to understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that what Europe and United States will do in maybe 10, 15, 20 years.
So it's to go to...
Just to industrial farming, so it's more competitive. It provides the opportunities to utilize the best achievement in science
industrial
and technology,
farming.
Of course.
Right. So this is, but with the proposed land reform, this would look at with individuals giving the small portions of land being able to
Land
sell?
reforms helped to attract investments because the land capitalization in Ukraine is too high. For the time being, it's too low because there is no land market. But if you open this land market, maybe 5 years' time, land could provide investments hundreds of billions. Because if you look what's the price, average price in Europe today, when you adjust this price to Ukrainian land, but in Ukraine it's better land, better quality, even if it's the same average, and in Europe, that means that capitalization of Ukrainian land would be exceeding 300 billion US dollars, not million, but billion.
So in short, you think that the government's proposed land reform plan is good, or is good enough for the time period?
You know, it's not bad. It could be supported by civil society, by farmers association. It would be not possible to have 100% support because there are different ideas. Some people are saying that it should be absolutely open market.
It's been 25 years.
Anyone can come and buy the land. Then the price for land went up very fast, and the capitalization would become different in, let's say, in 1-2 years' time. But as I said, looking at the experience Western and Eastern Europe and the rest of the world, we have to provide more opportunities for the local citizens. That's why it should small.
Start very slowly. Yes. Do you think what they're proposing is going to help with the issues with corruption that we have now with land and land usage and rental?
Now we have a lot of problems. That's why, but there are a number of different problems, not just corruption. We have technical problems because the data about each particular land, let's say the coordinates for the particular land is not 100% available. So if you want to buy this particular piece of land, that means that sometimes you will not 100% sure that this is exactly this piece of land. It should be fixed. Then which person has the priority, the farmer who lives in this area or that one who is leasing this land, because we have a lot of land being leased. Second, maybe somebody from different regions of Ukraine has a priority. So question about priority. Then another question is who would be given the rights to provide a kind of auction, because everyone who wants to buy should be bidding. Should be not. Right. Yes. So this procedure should be written in the legislation. So there are lots of questions like this, but everything is not on the way to be prepared and to put on draft on the laws, which are about 5 laws we have to approve at the Parliament. So we have a lot of help from our neighboring countries, from United States, from, it's not neighboring, but our friends, political friends, from European Union, because they have already gone this way. They know how to do this. So we learn. So we are putting everything in legislation, which should be approved pretty soon. And we need, of course, a number of governmental decrees to be approved as well. So if you work around the clock, so very intensive, it takes maybe 2-3 months to have everything prepared, then we can vote. And as I said, we will never have 100% support from the local people, but it's enough to have majority. And second important thing is, if somebody undertakes to implement this reform, it's Prime Minister, for instance, he has to be sure that he would be able to improve the situation on the way of implementation, because always you will have obstacles. So you have to be sure that if any obstacle appears, you can settle the problem, you can improve the situation, and you can move further. So I personally trying to support Prime Minister in land reform and implementation, because I know that it's a very good solution for Ukrainian farmers to receive very big financing, which we need to increase production.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you as well.
Thank you for watching. This is Vivica Williams with Head to Head.